A big part of any given show's identity is its theme song. It's one of the first things you hear when watching any given episode, and one of the first things that comes to your mind when thinking of the show. Too bad Boy Meets World couldn't figure out an identity, so they had to keep changing the theme song to fit whatever identity the show wanted to have that day. Almost every season they changed the intro, and it usually seemed to be due to a tone change within the show. So let's look over and rank all the Boy Meets World intros from worst to best, based on their quality as songs, their quality as intros, and how well they fit the tone of the show at the point they're used. Also, this idea came about because this video popped up in my recommended. So I guess I'll start off this segment by saying that this song at least fits the vibe of the show at this point. I thought it was a good idea to begin with that, because that is one of the only good things I have to say about the Season 1 intro. I feel like as a song, this has a lot of problems that bothered me even as a child. First of all, it is a full minute long, which many other shows have intros that are that long as well, but the difference between this and something like the Friends intro is just the small fact that the Friends intro actually has lyrics. This song is just a full minute of this weird ass instrumental circus music, and it's just a weird choice. Most other instrumental sitcom intros I can think of don't last longer than 30 seconds. There are quite a few animated intros that last a full minute with no lyrics, but those usually don't tend to feel that long due to the fast pace that the song itself and the visuals usually have. Which leads to my next problem with this intro. I feel like I've aged 50 years after hearing it. It feels so long for a number of reasons. One of those being that Boy Meets World has always had a very large main cast, and this intro shoves a title card or whatever you call it for each of Season 1's 8 main characters. And this is the only intro in the entire show that does that. So it just goes on and on showing you character after character after character, with Corey in between each one just kind of being there looking around like, whoa, 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 while all the 90s clip art flies around the screen like the Saved by the Bell intro. The overabundance of random clip art looks cheesy and is distracting in both Boy Meets World and the Saved by the Bell intros. But Boy Meets World at least does it a little better than Saved by the Bell, because at least Boy Meets World tried to have clip art related to the character, as opposed to Saved by the Bell where they just threw whatever crap they could find on screen. Look, an ice cream cone. Look, a fish. Look, pants. But I'm not a fan of the overuse of clip art in either. But I should add an addendum to my last statement, because while the intro is mostly just character introductions with Corey looking around in between them, that is neglecting to mention the part in the middle where the song just forgets what it is for a few seconds and becomes a completely different song, while showing random episode clips. And this 10-second moment is the only point in the intro where they show clips from episodes. So it shifts into being something completely different, both musically and visually. And musically, this intro doesn't just change the type of song it is once, including the normal intro that plays for most of it. This intro sounds like 4 different songs. We have the first 26 seconds or so, normal, 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 nothing out of the ordinary. Then it becomes a completely different song for 7 seconds. Then goes from that to another different song for a whopping 4 seconds. Then we go back to the original song, but don't get too attached, because we're only back to it for 6 seconds. Because then we switch to another new song for 5 seconds, then finally go back to the original song for the intro's remaining 11 seconds. That is 5 changes. 6 different segments of this song in the matter of a minute. And the first change doesn't even kick in until almost halfway through the song. So that's 5 different segments of the song, shoved into a time span of a little over 30 seconds. So of course none of the more out of the ordinary parts get the proper time to flesh out or feel like they fit at all. They're just weird and annoying detours that are there and then gone. Also, the normal part of this theme song that takes up a cumulative 43 seconds of the song is the most 90s sounding thing possible. I can't exactly put my finger on why, but it just sounds very dated. And aside from 90s and dated, The only other accurate description I can think of for this intro and the overall music for the first season is, again, circus music. And I definitely wouldn't say that's a good thing. One more problem I have, though this one is admittedly small and probably isn't the intro's fault, is the order in which the characters are listed. This probably doesn't bother anyone but me, but the order makes no sense. Why aren't the parents listed one after the other? Why is Sean 5th? The order just makes no sense. And I know it's like this for the rest of the show, but this season is the only time it's seen during the intro. The only other small compliment I can think of to give this intro is that the transitions to and from each character and the way their names are shown on screen are all very creative and fitting to each character's personality. But overall, this is easily the show's weakest intro. Next is the Season 3 intro, which is one of the show's 2 very short intros along with the Season 2 intro. And like the Season 2 intro, it has multiple variations. It's always the same visually, but there are 9 different short songs that play throughout the season. But you could have fooled me, because for the longest time, I thought that this one was the only version. When I found out there were this many intro variations, I thought, oh, I must have been remembering it wrong, and assumed they cycled through the list a few times. I assumed that every version was probably used 2 or 3 times. But no, the reason I thought there was only one was because in the first 9 episodes of the season, they'd cycled through all the variations. And I guess they decided they liked this one specific version because from episode 10 until the end of the season, that's the only song they used. Which is so confusing to me. Why make so many versions of the intro to only use all but one of them once? If they did what I mentioned earlier and just cycled through the list of songs a few times, instead of just doing it once and then sticking to one song from then on, it would have given this intro some good variety. But as it stands, for about half the season, it doesn't have any variety. Also, it doesn't help that the rest of the intro is pretty unremarkable. I don't really like the weird colors in the intro. It just kind of seems like a weird choice. And it was also a weird choice to have the intro be Cory, Sean, and Eric. Especially because this is the season where he really started to be separate from Cory and Sean's stories. I don't think these 3 do a single thing together this season. I get that at this point in the show, they're the 3 most important characters, but it still seems weird to have these 3 just hanging out like it's a normal thing that happens. It would have made more sense for Topanga to be there instead of Eric, but for some reason she wasn't fully a main character yet, so it's just Cory, Sean, and Eric. I will say the transition from the intro into the beginning of the episode is pretty well done and smooth, but overall not a great intro. Next, we have the shortest intro out of all of them, the Season 2 intro. I feel like the visuals of this intro fit the old writers trying to be cool and hip with the kids vibe parts of this season have, with Cory wearing his sunglasses and looking cool before getting crushed to death. But whether that's a good thing or bad thing is up to you. Like Season 3, this one has a lot of different versions, and they actually mix them up throughout the season. Even though this one only has 6 variations compared to Season 3's 9, the Season 2 intro actually feels like it has variety, because they don't just stick to one variation from episode 10 onward. I actually knew there were multiple versions and didn't think there was only one for a while. And all the different songs fit the season's musical vibe it has, with stuff like the transition music. It's all very, like, 50s-ish.
Turner's bike.
They all sound decent and are just a nice quick way to begin an episode. And also I love the quick tone shift that Who's Afraid of Cory Wolf has with the intro. Overall, it's good, but nothing special. Next up, we have the show's only intro that managed to last more than one season, going on for the show's final 3 seasons. Also, no, I'm not separating season 5's intro and season 6 and 7's intro. They're very similar. The same song, the same basic concept, even if some of the footage is different and some characters are added. But anyway, this one is definitely the show's most iconic intro, and for good reason. The song is pretty good and fits the vibe of the show. The only flaw with it is that it isn't always easy to tell what's being said. Like, for the longest time I thought at this part he was saying collide. And the visuals are fine, some shots are kind of awkward, but overall both the visuals and the song itself show the show's theme of friendship. Even though the characters aren't really the big group of friends, this song and this show tries to act like they are. They're more like 2 groups of friends that have some overlap, but some of them barely interact. But despite that, the intro is still very good, but isn't my favorite. That honor goes to the Season 4 intro. Even though the song is instrumental, it still has a very nice, warm sound to it that I really like, and doesn't go on for too long, unlike some other intros. It gives the vibe of the show just being nice and pleasant, which is a description the show usually fits. Again, it doesn't really make sense why Eric is in their group of friends here, as he barely interacts with any of these 3 this season, but it makes more sense than it did in season 3 because at least Topanga's here. And these 4 are the main 4 characters of the show at this point. This intro also does a good job including almost every important character at this point in the show. Because we get Cory, Shawn, Topanga, and Eric in the car, then we get footage of Mr. Feeney, Cory's parents, and Morgan. The only character who's kind of a main character this season and isn't included is Mr. Turner. But throughout this season, he only appears in a few episodes, he doesn't have many lines in most of them, and then just dies. But anyway, this intro is great. It just puts me in a good mood, and that's a good way to begin any show. So, those are all the intros. And I feel like the sheer amount of times it changed really shows how much the tone of the show changed over the years too. I don't know, I just thought it was interesting.